Start. Hi, everybody. My name is Troy, and I am an alcoholic addict. My sobriety date is the 4th of July, 1993, and for that, I am truly grateful. First of all, I just want to take this time to thank the host committee, Bo, Lewis, and the entire Ashley Alumni Services team for the opportunity to participate in your recovery celebration program. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to take you back where it all started for me, which was middle school. And when I reflect back and I think about my years, my younger years, I made a real strong connection to people pleasing, which I believe has been a big part of my problem using drugs and alcohol moving forward. Because part of my story is I can honestly say I did so many things that I truly didn't enjoy, but I wanted to fit in so bad and I wanted you to like me so bad that I had made some seriously bad choices. When I think back of my school years, I was never a good student. I kind of checked out of that when I got into middle school, and I was the kind of kid that was really afraid of everything. That's how it felt for me. My brother Tony, God bless him, rest his soul, unfortunately he had died of this disease, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But my brother was the first person to smoke pot with me, and I was young, and I remember coming home and we smoked a lot of pot, and he took me out and he did the big brother thing, and he got me high for the first time. And I got to tell you, I came home, I was young, 7th grade, and I remember walking in the door and my mother grabbed me and put me in front of the mirror, and she started shaking me in front of the mirror, and she said to my brother, "What did you do to your little brother?" I remember being so stoned and so high, I even got sick from smoking pot, if that is possible. And it is, I can tell you firsthand. Dry, it was horrible, but that's part of my story. That's part of how I got started. It seemed like all the drugs that I was getting introduced to at the time were through my brother. I had discovered some alcohol, we hear it over and over and over again about what alcohol does for us and what it had done for me. It simply had given me some false courage, and now I could be that kind of that outgoing guy as opposed to being shy and reserved. I could get a little more, I could kind of fit in a little bit better and kind of chime in with everybody. So that's kind of how it was for me in middle school. And I wasn't doing well in school. I was making some efforts, and what I've learned later in my recovery is I could have been a great student. I just didn't apply myself, and I wasn't applying myself. So because we don't have a lot of time, I've really got to fast forward through some of this. So now we're coming into high school, 1973, freshman year. My parents divorced, and we moved to Hayward, California. And things had gotten really scary out there for me, moving into a new community. I was in a pretty safe community at the time. Like I said, I was no stranger to drugs and alcohol. I'd been introduced. But now we're getting into high school, and I'm not going to school. My mother's going to work. I'm coming back home, and I'm going over to a friend's house, and basically we're getting stoned, listening to music, and pretty much just spacing out, because that's all it really was when I look back at it. I didn't mention as of yet, I'm a drummer. I play in a band called Tesla, and I've been playing with Tesla for 35 years now. I'm one of the original members, 4 out of 5 guys, and we've got a great backstory. We don't have time for it, but I want to let you know that my drums were pretty much my saving grace for me. It was the one thing that I could escape to, and it slowly started pulling me out of circles, and I didn't like playing drums high. So from my freshman years, I started getting in a lot of bands. I got into some trouble. I went through juvenile hall. Again, I did not steal the car, but if you jump in the car, guess what? You're going to juvenile hall for joyriding in a stolen car. It doesn't matter who stole it. These are part of those stupid, bad decisions I was making based on just wanting to fit in. And when I think about that people pleaser inside of me and just how prevalent it is for, I feel, a whole generation of kids and all of us growing up, I think it's the one thing most of us can relate to. But let me fast forward into the 90s, okay? Now, I'm coming through school. I'm playing through a lot of bands. I'm playing in clubs. I'm doing some social partying in and out. I got married at a young age. My responsibilities had changed, but I had always wanted to make a record, and I was hoping that I would get that opportunity. Well, fast forward, I did get that opportunity back in 1985 when I joined Tesla. That was the beginning of something really, really great for me. But also, when the first record came out in 86, and we hit the road with David Lee Roth from Van Halen in 87, and then we went on the Def Leppard tour for 15 months. And then if you want to fast forward to 30 years, you can imagine what had transpired. The disease had progressed. I was doing a lot of partying. I really didn't realize I had a problem. And now we're getting into headlining. We went from clubs to headlining arenas. And basically what had happened for me is my bottom was a spiritual bottom. I found myself in 1991 headlining arenas with Tesla. I had everything I ever thought I wanted, which was a fat bank account. You know, things looked good. Everything was going fantastic. And here I was, spiritually broke, and really didn't understand why. You know, some of the things that I was doing on the partying level, I was doing whatever it is you were doing, and we were pretty much all in this together. But the truth of the matter is when those people went to sleep, I was still up. Why? Well, I got introduced to that cocaine drug. You know, the big lie where it's non-addictive and all that great stuff that we heard back in the day, some of us. I know that I heard it, and that was the story, but I can tell you it was the big lie. That was the drug that took me down and brought me down really quick. And I got to tell you, I'm super, super grateful for that, because by the time, 1987, when we hit the road, we went on a 10-year run before we took a break, okay? But the nice part about that break, if you look at from 86 to 96, well, let's backtrack to 91, where I had a friend of mine who came out to a show that we were doing, and he said to me, he says, Troy, he was a sober guy. I didn't know this. I had no idea what being sober even meant. But what he said to me, he says, Troy, he says, look, man, he says, I love you. You're a dear friend of mine. And he says, and I can't want you to do this to yourself anymore. And I was like, do what to myself anymore? I'm like, you know, fast forward later that week, he comes to, I went to, I had an apartment in Sacramento where the band's from. And basically what had happened is he had introduced me to a questionnaire called, Am I an Addict? And he said, Troy, I want you to do me a favor. Can you please just answer this as honestly as you can? I think it was 29 questions. I recently looked it up, 26. But this is what I know, okay? No clue the fact that I'm anywhere near an alcoholic addict, but I knew there was something wrong because once I got going, I just couldn't stop. So I went through the questionnaire. I looked at it, and right then and there, I don't believe I even hit one no. I believe everything was a yes. And that was my awakening to the fact that, wow, I have a problem, and now I'm scared. What am I going to do? Well, again, I started going to some meetings with him. I went in with an alias. I was a popular guy in the Sacramento area because of the band and blah, 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 blah. And I thought I was somebody, and basically that turned me into Paul. So I went in as Paul, a.k.a. And I learned that I couldn't stay sober. I was going on the road. I was going to meetings, and I started to get honest with myself. I started hearing some things. I had a sponsor. So basically what had happened with me on my journey is I hit another bottom. I was scared. I was doing the half measures. It availed us nothing. It availed me absolutely nothing. I'd put 30 days, 60. Then I finally hit a 90-day. I thought I was doing great, coming back from Europe on a tour, and I relapsed. So in that relapse, I had made a promise to my sponsor at the time. I said, look, man, if I can't figure this thing out, I'll do the rehab thing. Well, guess what? I go into rehab in a place called New Beginnings in November 91. I get out December 21st, 91. 9 days later, New Year's, 91, 92, Tesla is playing the Tokyo Dome, sold out, 55,000 people in front of Metallica. Well, I had some tools. They gave me some tools in the program. First thing, there was no media, social media, phones and such. But what I did is I jumped in, I went in, I got to the meeting, I got to an English-speaking meeting that morning, played the show, got out at 9 o'clock, met somebody, picked me up, I went to my first AA party. I was completely bored. But the next day I flew home and I was still sober. And I went to 2 meetings, one that morning in Japan and one that night at the Nursery Group 3, which was a men's group that I went to. So fast forward, I'm going to meetings, I'm staying sober. I have a friend of mine who brought me in. So I had the keys to recovery. I knew what to do. I knew what the steps were. I was doing all of this. I was being service to others. Well, now I had a friend of mine named Brady Ayers with Jostens, and he said, Troy, he said, look, I want you to do me a favor. He said, would you come speak at a high school, middle school for me? I said, well, sure. What do you want me to talk about? Drugs. I said, drugs. I said, okay, I'll be happy to do it. So basically what happened is I documented the whole program. I went into a middle school and I found out that I'm really passionate. I really think it starts with the middle schools because that's where it started for me at such a young age. And what I realized is that not only was I scared to do this, but I just said yes because that's part of my program. I've always said just show up. If you go to troylucketta.net, you will see just show up. Well, that was my program, just show up. So I showed up for the kids. I documented the whole program. It's called troyshowsup.com. And it is now my flagship for what I'm doing for part of my service work, to get out there, to talk to these young kids, educate them. Not only do we have problems with drugs, alcohol, suicide, social media, texting while we're driving, all these things that are a problem, we've got to reach the youth. That's what it's all about for me. That's why I'm in the schools. That's why I'm doing this. I'm very passionate about this. I just picked up my 17, just turned 18-year-old daughter last week, who lost her dear young friend, 15 years old, to suicide. And she was on that verge. She was headed there. I picked her up almost 3 months ago. She's doing fantastic. We're re-educating. We're reintroducing her to the system. And all I can tell you is, I'm the good example of the bad example. That's who I am in the schools. People, that is truly just from making poor choices. So that is all I could really tell you about what it is about me and my program and what I'm doing. troyshowsup.com. Please take a look at it. Please know how important these kids are. We all know what's going on in the world today. There's so many missing children, and I can't go down that road. It's a rabbit hole. But I can tell you this. I'm forever grateful. I thank you for this time and this opportunity to be able to speak to all of you. And I hope someday I could get out to the facility. It's a phenomenal facility. I've looked online. I've seen what it is. And I cannot say enough from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for having me here today. And I hope you got something out of it. And peace. Much love to all of you.